Right. Hi, everyone. I'm Lucia Sohmen. I work at the Open Science Lab at TIB, and I do the data curating, so data modeling, data transformation, data upload for the Wikibases that we provide services for. And so first some context. What are we doing? We are providing a service called Wikibase for Research, so my colleague Lukas Günther will give a presentation on that tomorrow. So just in short, it's a software suite for Wikibase, specifically for research Wikibases, but we also provide hosting, technical support, and but also data support, which is what I do. And in this context, we have developed a data model. And so the Wikibase for Research service is mostly aimed at cultural projects. So we have developed this data model, which is a generic data model for cultural objects, which has the goal of being able to be reused in many cultural databases or Wikibases, because we support a few of them and many have similar needs. It should also be standard compliant, so standard compliant in the research domains, so in the cultural community. And it should also fulfill the needs of these research projects, of the research objects. So we've developed this data model. It follows the standard of CDOC-CRM, which is a data standard for humanities. It even has an ISO. And we also put in our experience with the needs of the past projects that we had and the ongoing projects. And we also have the 3D viewer, Semantic Compact connected to some Wikibases, so the technical needs for 3D models are also in this. So what I'm going to present to you today is some of our best practices from creating this data model, maintaining it, updating it, and some of the challenges that we faced with this, with Wikibase. Okay, so first of all, you might ask the question, why do we even need a formalized data model? Like, why can't I just input all the properties and classes when I need them? And there are many reasons. So first of all, there's the practicality. So as you probably know, when you freshly install a Wikibase, there's nothing in it. There are no properties, no classes, nothing. And we are working with researchers who are experts in their fields, but not necessarily experts in Wikibase. So this can be very confusing for them to create properties, especially properties, but also classes and other things as well. And also when working on a data model, it's often an iterative process. It's revised all the time. So it can be a bit of a pain to delete properties in Wikibase, recreate them. You can change the data type. So maybe you wanted to have a URL, but now you want to change it to a string or an item, and that doesn't work, so you have to delete everything. Then also there's the issue of findability. So if you want to find all items and information about them through Sparkle especially, they need to be described consistently. So all entities of the same type need to have the same information, otherwise you don't know what to search for. And also it's usually an inherent will of researchers to be very precise in the language that they use. So having a data model and using all the same vocabulary is, I think, just common in research projects that collect data. And when you create this this data model outside of Wikibase, then you have the advantage that everyone can collaborate on this data model. So not just the people collecting the data or the people entering the data, but can basically all work on it together. And one of the main reasons for us is this easy reuse in other Wikibases. And also the data model can be shared and can easily be mapped to other data models as well for data sharing. Here are some tips about how to develop a data model. So these are the best practices that we use. So the target format is RDF because that can be uploaded to Wikibase. And we usually either develop this in tables or maybe in mind maps. So basically you have a big board and you put all the types on it and you have the connections between them and the statements that you want to make about them. And so the strategy that we use mostly is to workshop the model with all the team members of the project in iterative sessions. So you have one workshop, then people can think about it and come back in the next workshop and maybe have more questions or more solutions. And so it's very important that you have domain experts but also data experts working together, because you just need the knowledge of both of them. And then you should basically think about some things like, what kind of entities do I want to describe? What statements do I want to make? So what properties do I need? Which questions should be answered in general by the database, just so you don't make up a lot of statements that you could theoretically make about something, but it's not actually useful data. And then you can also find out, are there already any data models in use in this research domain? And so if there are any controlled vocabularies, it's great to use them, just for linked data reasons and standard compliancy reasons. Right, and so on the right you can see kind of what information should be in the data model. So yeah, the minimum requirement for everything is, of course, to have a label and description, and for properties to have a data type. And then it might be a good idea for classes to have subclasses, and then also to map this data model. So for classes to have equivalent classes, for properties, equivalent properties, and similar instances. And then, so for us, we also assign a custom ID for every object, which is good. So the Wikibase QID or property ID, which is good for reuse and basically for making all the same Sparkle queries and for mapping this data model to other data models. Right, so once we've created this data model, there's the question of uploading it. And there are a few options. So if you don't want to work with a script, you could theoretically manually create all of these classes, instances, and properties. And I mean, that can work for small models. If you only have like 20 things that you want to create, it doesn't take that much time. But usually models are a bit bigger. One option for data upload to Wikibase that's very popular and that I use a lot is OpenRefine. And you can upload classes and instances with OpenRefine, but you can't upload properties, so you would still have to manually create those properties. And well, both of these things are, both of these options have some room for error. So if you make a mistake with creating a property, well, deleting properties is often a bit of a pain. You won't have the same ID, and so this and other reasons are why we use a custom script in our projects. So, I mean, and then we also have other reasons like the size of the data model, which is very big. I think we have like 120 properties, something like that, and a similar amount of classes and instances. So it would take a long time to manually do everything. And it's also a bit complex. It has a lot of information in it. And well, the main reason is that we want to reuse it. We have multiple Wikibases. We have some now. We probably have more in the future. So it's just once you've written the script, then you can just upload any data model that follows the same format to any Wikibase. Right, and yeah, you can see the link in our GitLab to the script. It uses Wikibase integrator, and basically the goal is that it uploads TTL files to Wikibase. And what it does is obviously creating classes, properties, instances with labels and descriptions and aliases. And currently it supports English and German, but it could also support other languages as well. We have this information about subclasses, subproperties, instance of, so it can add statements. We have formatters for external identifiers. So if you're familiar with external identifiers, so let's say a Wikidata ID would be an external identifier, and so you enter in the Q123, and the formatter would be wikidata.org/entity/, so you just know the format of these identifiers, and that's basically important for clicking on it, but also for federated Sparkle queries, so queries that come from our Sparkle endpoint, but also query Wikidata. And then the script also adds the custom Wikibase ID, which I talked about before. And so one to-do that's not in there yet, but hopefully in the future, is also to add RDF mappings. Mappings with all same as, all equivalent class, all equivalent property, which is made possible by an extension called RDF Wikibase. Right, so once the data model is in the Wikibase, maybe you want to update it in the future. If more needs come up, maybe more data from the research project. And theoretically, that's easy, so you can just rerun the upload script, and it will add any new classes or properties and skip the ones that are already there. But, because, in our case, we are using those custom Wikibase IDs, this won't work if you have added any new classes, properties, or instances in the meantime. So it's important to use a workaround. Right after uploading the initial data model, you should reserve some Wikibase IDs. So for us, we reserve up to 200. You can do this by resetting the ID counter, and unfortunately, this only works from the admin side, so you need server access. And then sometimes changing the data model might also require some changes to the existing data. And I think the easiest way to do this is just to use Sparkle, find all statements that need to be changed, and then change them in OpenRefine. But it's always possible to do this with a script. So for example, we do have a script in our repository that I linked earlier where you can change properties. So first you had property P1, but you want to change all instances of these to P2. That's what that script does. Right. And in all of that work, we have encountered some challenges with using this formal data model and this basically formal linked data approach with Wikibase. So first of all, it's what I've talked about before with those IDs in Wikibase. So if you create something, the P and Q numbers count up. But when you want to reuse data models, you need consistent identifiers. And so it would be nice if those were somehow in Wikibase. And we achieved this with some workarounds. So first of all, we put the Wikibase identifier into the node of the TTL file, which is, well, not really the place that's meant for that, but there isn't really another good one. And we need to customize the script to upload the right identifier. And it happened a lot in our work where we made some kind of mistake, maybe in the data model file or in the script, and the data was uploaded wrong, and then the easiest way to change the data again was to have an admin reset the whole Wikibase, because if you delete a property, the P number doesn't become free, it just goes on to the next number, so everything needs to be reset. So basically if you want to add new properties, you can only do this with this workaround. And another problem that we've encountered is that we've had someone wanted to collaborate and provide extensions for our data model, but that's not really great because, what if this person uses an identifier that we use later in the data model? So there's no easy way basically to have extensions. Also, another thing is that Wikibase doesn't really make a difference between classes and instances. So a class would be, what is it? Is it a human or a building or something like that? And instance would be like types of licenses, maybe CC BY, CC ND, CC0 and so on. And for the data model, you usually want to see all the classes, but there's no good way to see that in Wikibase itself. So you have to maintain it outside somewhere. And then there's also the problem of reusing other data models, which is very common because you want to adhere to standards, you want to reuse what is already there. just for better linking between research projects. And so it's not possible natively. There's an RDF extension that exists. Yeah. And so considering all these challenges, we've thought about how could Wikibase become better for linked open data. The first point would be to allow custom identifiers so that the P and Q numbers aren't that important and you could query using these custom identifiers. And then you don't really have to have all these problems that I talked about before with those identifiers. And native integration of RDF would be great. So RDF mappings and the other things that I mentioned before. And then, well, this isn't just necessarily for linked data, but just from working with all these research projects that don't have a lot of experience with Wikibase, it would be great if there was an option to create properties from a table, just like classes and instances in OpenRefine, if there are good, easy to understand and forms for Wikibase, and maybe if you create formal data models, you can put in aspects like domain and range, which means if I have a property, what can it be used for? So what entity can it be used for, and what value can it have? But this isn't enforced in Wikibase, and that would be great to have just for data quality control. All right, that was it for me. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Lucia. Are there any questions? Okay.
Thanks.
Sort of. One of the big strengths of Wikibase is multilingual support, and there's a case to be made that if your wiki is not multilingual, then it's rarely the best approach. But to what extent do you use the multilingual features of Wikibase?
For the data model, we started, I think, with only one language, but so we've extended it to English and German, and of course that's a bit harder to maintain in a table once you add more languages. So right now the data model format and the custom script allows upload in English and German, and it's not really a big change to change what kind of languages are supported.
And we have data in our Wikibase is usually in German and English, at least, sometimes also Dutch. But depends on the project. There was a question here.
So it sounds like a lot of the stuff in the second half of your presentation was sort of fighting against the current limitations of Wikibase.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a sense of whether, and maybe this isn't solely a question for you, do you have a sense of whether the maintainers of Wikibase see those as legitimate issues that they would like to fix, or do you think that the workarounds that you develop through these other libraries are essentially the future of building, large-scale research models in Wikibase?
Yeah, so I mean, my personal hope is that maybe the Echolog project can address some of these problems, because I think Wikibase, I mean, it's mostly made for Wikidata, and Wikidata already has this huge data model of I don't know how many properties and other things, so I think that's not their biggest concern right now of how to create and upload a data model, because it's already mostly in there, and if they want to make new things, they can, yeah, this can just be added on top.